Hi! So I know it has been a while since I've done a video. Honestly, I have sat down and done this video I don't know how many times. Just trying to figure out how exactly to say it, how exactly to go about it. But I really thought it was important that I start with my story. How Stories and Stoneware started. Especially now that I've kind of changed my YouTube video to be more about a life of a professional potter. I felt it was really important to tell you guys kind of where I came from, and it's an interesting story. I did not start off with the idea that I was going to be a professional potter, honestly. When I was younger, it was very much drilled into my head that I needed a college degree, I needed a career, I needed to make a lot of money, and that's how I was going to succeed. And so that's what I tried to do. I did, start to get that degree. I did start the career, and then rapidly found out that it was not going to work for me. I will get into that a little bit later, like the specifics of why and why I had to make the change and stuff. But yeah, I just really wanted to tell you guys this story, whether it be an inspiration for you to get started being a professional potter, or you're just interested in, I don't know, running your own creative business perhaps, or if you're just interested in pottery and you want to learn how my business started. Whatever your reason, I thought it was important that I start with how Stories and Stoneware started, how I started my business, and how I became a professional potter. So I figured with my whole story, I would start off with how I started with pottery. Like I said, I was always really pushed to do the career, to do, the education and stuff like that, to make, lots of money and, have a typical 9-to-5 job. And so, although I found pottery in high school, it took me a while to get back into it. I did fall in love with it in high school. I ended up taking a class for hand building, and that was kind of how they started you. And once you got through that class, they let you go into wheel throwing. And wheel throwing was really where I absolutely loved to do it. I really enjoyed the creative aspects of like the shape, the form, the glazing. I liked the fact that I could make things that were usable, that were like functional art. They weren't just pretty, but you could use them every day. And so like our final for the wheel throwing class was that we did a show, and we had to have 20 pieces and stuff, and so it was really funny. It took me a very, very long time to get good at the wheel. I'm left-handed, and I had a teacher that was adamant I had to learn how to do it right-handed, so I wasn't allowed to switch the wheel or anything like that, and I went through a lot of clay and a lot of after-school time trying to get the centering and the walls and everything done, and to actually have 20 pieces for this final that we had to do. But I did it, and at the final I ended up selling a couple pieces, so that was really cool. It was kind of like my first taste of being an entrepreneur. But I didn't actually stick with it. Like I said, I just was pushed to do the school and the career and stuff like that, and so that's really what I got into. I ended up taking college classes. I ended up getting a degree, the start of a degree in early childhood education, and I started doing that as a job. I started being an early educational teacher. So I did that for about 8 years, and then I started running into some health issues. I ended up not being able to do that job. I ended up kind of pushing through it, but my health just kind of got worse and worse, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on, and I found out that I just couldn't keep doing childcare. It wasn't going to be a career choice that I could continue doing for the rest of my life, unfortunately. And so as I was phasing out of doing that for work, I was kind of lost and frustrated, and I didn't know what to do with myself, because here I was, my degree was in it, all of my experience, my 8 years of experience were in it. How was I going to get a job doing something else when that's where all of my expertise was? And so it was a lot of stress, a lot of turmoil, and I really wasn't sure what to do. And that the year I finally started seeing that it wasn't something that I could do long term, and with my health struggle and stuff, it was in January 8 years ago. I made a New Year's resolution to myself, or a goal, or whatever you want to call it, to get back into pottery. I felt like I needed the outlet. I needed something to look forward to, because everything that I had worked so hard towards wasn't going to pan out. So yeah, I got back into it. I started taking classes at the Clay Connection, which is a local pottery studio. I know we're very fortunate to have them. Not everybody has, local pottery studios. But yeah, I started taking classes there, and I remembered how much I loved it. I even did hand building, I did wheel throwing. I started, I had a teacher again to, help me get over this whole left hand, right hand thing with wheel throwing. Yeah, so I just started falling in love with it again. And I took classes for about a year or two before I started running into those problems where it kind of happened when you go to a local studio, where your stuff didn't get fired to the right temperature, or a student didn't do something right so everything exploded, or there weren't enough wheels to be able to throw on. So I started running into those issues more and more. So that is kind of when I made the decision to try to start making my own home studio. I actually had a friend who worked at a local college, and they were he had a couple contacts that were letting him know that the pottery program and teachers and stuff were getting rid of old pottery equipment they didn't need anymore. And so that was the first piece I got in my home studio, was a motorized kick wheel, a Laguna motorized kick wheel. And this thing was old when I got it. I'd have to say about 7 years ago. But let me tell you what, up until about a year ago, that was the wheel I was throwing on. And so that was the first piece. And then, little by little, I just started adding more and more pieces to my studio. I was able to add a kiln like a year or two later, and I was able to start having my own home studio to be able to work from. I still did the Clay Connection and stuff like that, but if there wasn't enough wheels to throw on, then I could do some at home, or if I really needed something to get fired by a certain time because it was a Christmas present or whatever, I could do it. And so it was about a year after I got my kiln and did a lot of experimentations with glazes and stuff. Those of you who've been doing pottery for a while probably understand. It does take a while to get used to running your own kiln, and what cones you need and what temperatures things like to get fired at. So I did that for about a year, and then I had a lot of friends that were telling me, oh, you should try to sell it, at least you support your hobby. So it was about 3 years ago, last July, I decided to start my own business. So I went down to my local DOR, and City Hall, and kind of went through all the steps I needed to be able to start my own business. All the procedures, all the licensings, all the things you needed to be able to start your own business. I kind of made my way through all of that. So here I am, 8 years after making my New Year's resolution, and 3 years after starting my business, being a professional potter. And so I really wanted to let you guys know this was kind of, a little bit about my story, a little bit about my history, because it didn't happen right off the bat. It didn't happen all at once. It was just kind of little by little suggestion here, little New Year's resolution. Well, that was probably a big New Year's resolution, but you know, started with a New Year's resolution, and then I added, you know, some equipment here, you know, a suggestion there, and yeah, that's kind of how Stories in Stoneware started. And like I said, I always was kind of drawn to functional art, stuff people could use that was beautiful. So I naturally was inclined to do mugs. I really kind of fell in love with the form and, you know, handle making and stuff like that. So Stories in Stoneware tends to do more mugs and things. When you're selling, it's important to kind of have like a niche that you follow, and I can get more into that if you guys are interested later in other videos. But yeah, so here I am 3 years later with a pottery business, and it's really funny to think that if I had not really set my foot down in that time period where I wasn't sure what to do with my life, if I hadn't gone and decided to make that New Year's resolution, I wouldn't be here making this YouTube video about how Stories in Stoneware started. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, you'd like to see more like it, or if you are interested in the day-to-day of how I run my business or anything like that, or even like how I make my stuff or what I specialize in. Just leave me a comment below and let me know what you'd like to see, and I'd be happy to make a video for you. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, I just wanted to remind you guys to make messes, make mistakes, and enjoy that process.